Okay. There's something interesting that I just remembered, which is the ground and the box and the skybox, they're gonna have solid colors, and the walls are textured. So we can't do that so far because our shader, where's our shader? Our fragment shader only reads from the texture, right? So there's no way that I can have, oh, so in the way it is right now, either our objects have textures or they have colors. There's no way to have like a flag to have some objects with textures, some of them with solid colors. And we discussed this one idea here that is, I think, is pretty cool, which is this idea here. I want to talk about it. It's number 4 here. Is how to mix base color with texture color. And this is using linear interpolation, which is nice because we learned that in the class, and it's nice to implement this and see this working in the shader. We use interpolation, and specifically linear interpolation, for a lot of things. And this is just another example or another usage of it. And this is cool because this is another approach for an if statement. So you could have, and I'm going to show you how this could be written as an if statement. But these 2 lines here, they actually substitute an if statement using interpolation, and which is a really nice feature. And it's not only cool because what this does is blends 2 colors using interpolation, right? It blends base color with text color, giving this parameter t, which is the interpolation point. So for example, if this is 0.5, you're gonna blend these 2 colors equally. So you're gonna get half from this and half from that. But more specifically, if this is 0, right, we get only the solid color. And if this is 1, we get only text color. So I hope you see this as an if statement, right? If it's 0, you get only 1. If it's 1, you get the other. So and why is this interesting? Because again, shaders run on the GPU, and GPUs are not very good with if statements. They're very good in parallel processing. So they are very good in processing vectors and matrices, but they're not very fast at processing sequential code, or specifically branches. So dealing with branches and for loops and all of these things is not so GPUs are actually not optimized for that, and they are not really, really good as opposed to CPUs. CPUs are actually good on doing for loops and if statements, but GPUs, even though they can do it, they are not very they're not built for that. Even though they can do it, you won't extract the best out of GPUs by having fors and if statements. So this is actually one takeaway and hint for your life if you're doing graphics, which is try to avoid as much as possible if statements or even for loops inside your shaders. Okay. So that aside, let me start doing this. So essentially what you're gonna have is, we're gonna have here, we have our uSampler color and you have our V color. We actually already have our color as well per vertex. The information is coming for us, right? If you look at our cubes, they already have in here RGBs. We are not using them, right? But we actually have a color here. So we can actually use this color as our base color here. So let's do that. What I want to do is pretty much like follow these 2 lines here, and essentially say I'm gonna make another uniform. Sorry, here I'm gonna make another uniform. Call it it's a float uniform. I'm gonna call it U text color weight. And then down here, I'm going to say float t equals to this guy, just to make it shorter. We don't have to do this, but just to kind of use t is like a more standard, I think, name for the interpolation parameter. And here I want to say 1 minus t times, where is it? vColor. But vColor has to be a vector 4. Or we can actually, even if you want to make this more similar to the description on Canvas, we can say vector vec4 equals to vec4 base color. Base color equals vColor extended by 1. And why is this? Because both of them have to be vector 4s. Right? Both base color and text color, they have to be vector 4s. So if I do this now, and our text color variable here is actually, text color. So by doing this, we are now blending our color that comes from vColor, which is the color specified here, which we still have it. We still have those. In this case, we have red here. Remember, one color per face: red, green, blue, white, and so on. Mix that color with the texture. Does this make sense? Okay. So with this, so now we have to set this uniform. And let's see. Here, you're obviously going to have to do the same. Retrieve. I'm going to copy this to make it easier. Retrieve. Call. What is the name? text color weight uniform. And this is here. This is here. We have to define the global variable. Boom. This can be actually, this is a number, right? So this can be maybe 0.5, a default value, or maybe 1. Actually, let's use like one of the edge cases. So 1. So if this is 1, we should only see the texture. So we should see the same result. Oh, hold on a second. I'm doing something. No, this is not. I just said something wrong. This has to be null because this is an address. This is not a value. This is a memory address in the shader. So this is going to be that, and this is going to be that. Yeah, text like this. I'm going to make sure again that the names are matching. Yeah, this is this. This is this. Okay, good. Let's go back. We got that. Now we have to update the interpolation argument or parameter. And this is a GL uniform 1F because it's just one float. So this is this. Here we have the address of the uniform, and I want to give a value, let's say 1, right? I'm going to just range from 1 to 0. Okay. All right. So that's it. I think that's it. So now this should work, I guess. Let's see, let's run this and see if you don't break anything. You didn't break anything. Okay, we did break something. This is a shader problem. Failed to compile shader, line 18. Medium float. What did I do? Oh yeah, we actually have to say this one here. We have to specify it as a float, otherwise it doesn't cast automatically. Yeah, that was the problem. And okay, so it worked. So with that, I think we can already switch between base caller and text caller. Let's say if I set this to 0 now, there you go. We got, so the front faces are white and the red faces are green, but now we switch between the two of them. And as I said, we avoid using an if statement. Here, another way of doing this would be having this. If this guy equals to 1, you run this. Else, maybe else if you want to be sure, else if equals 0, then, oh, sorry, if it's, this is 1, this would be only text caller. If it's if it's 0, then you should read the base caller. This is another way of writing the same thing, but this is much slower. I know it doesn't look like, but it's much, much slower. And so this still works, but first of all, this only supports 1 and 0, right? It only supports either texture or solid color. If you go back to our approach, we can actually blend colors, which is much cooler. Because now, if you keep that, sorry, if you keep this way, you make sure it's still working. Yeah. Now we can put a 0.5 in there and get blend colors. See? And we get now a little bit of the texture with the green in there. So this is cool because, yeah, this is really cool because this allows you to kind of reuse a texture to make, for example, maybe let's say if you want to have a night and day-night shift type of thing, you could have a color coming from white to black. Or if you want to kind of, we're going to do this later in the next assignment, we're going to actually implement light, which is much better than this. But you could mimic kind of a day-night type of cycle by having this number here changing over time, right? For example, we can actually, we could play with this a little bit, just so you know. We can start this with 0. And then in our rendering loop, we could change this over time. Maybe it's having a float here. Sorry, let t equals 0. And then you say here t plus equals 0 plus equals 0.01. Let's see if this is. And then we can say like if t greater than 1, t we can do something more interesting. I think we can do something like this: sign equals 1, and then we do this time sign. We do sign. If it's greater than 1, then you do sign times equals -1. It's going to start coming back. You can do that for this if t less or equal than 0, or so if this is shorter. No, let's do this is less than 0 and greater than 0. Then we flip. Whenever this happens, we're going to flip the value and then start going back. I think this should work. Let's see. No, sorry. Let's do this, make sure. Let's see if this works. I might be wrong. Yeah, it looks. Yeah, see? So you could have some animations like this to kind of play with these values a little bit. And maybe you can also change the color or something to animate between one and the other. So yeah, that's it. This is just like a extra thing that you could do, but yeah, we don't have to worry about this. Okay, so now we can interpolate between colors, and we can actually have either solid color or textures. We still don't have a way to specify which object, right? Which object is going to use the texture, or which object is going to use the color. And this is kind of simple, right? We can just simply, I'm going to remove this actually for now. We can simply, in our geometries, we can add here to our geometry another variable called drawing mode. Or maybe color mode. And this is like kind of color mode equals to default might be 1, which is texture. Actually, let's make the default 0. The default is using solid color, but then you can set this as you want. So with this, you can come in your world and say, well, I want my sky to be 0, which is the default. I'm going to just write it here just to kind of highlight. Again, I changed the geometry. I added a color mode. So in my world, I can do this. Sky color mode 0. Ground color mode is also 0. But the walls are going to have color mode equals to 1. Now we can use this variable to decide which object is gonna use which mode. So if you go back to your assignment, we can, let's see this, I don't want this. I don't want this as well. We here now in our draw loop, we're gonna have to update the color mode as well in here. And updating the color mode is actually updating this guy, the interpolation argument. So now in our draw function, using geometry color mode. Okay. So now here, instead of 0 and 1, we can say geometry dot color mode. There you go. So now it's generic. Like now you can just set the code mode in the for each geometry. Yeah, see the default. So we set the walls to be 1, but in there, in the world, we could set it to be 0 here. And it could be 0.5. But we're gonna probably use only 0 and 1. So this is gonna be 1. And now you can, yeah, and the ground and the sky, they will be different. Okay. I think that's it for, honestly, I think that covers pretty much everything for the assignment. So I can take some questions about this implementation. If you don't have any questions, we can talk about performance a little bit. Do you have any questions?